My name is Jamie. I live with my husband, Ken, just the two of us. I hear the sound of a key turning in the lock at the entrance. Ken is back from work. Somehow, at some point, I began to feel a bit anxious whenever I sensed him coming home. It's not the flutter of romance, but it's a tightness in my chest, clearly stemming from stress and tension. I never thought I would feel that way toward my husband, my own family.
Oh, right. One of my colleagues just got married recently, and apparently they're having a child.
While eating dinner, Ken started talking about his colleague. My chest tightened painfully.
Must be nice for his wife, huh? And here we are, 2 years into our marriage, still without kids.
He sighed as he spoke.
2 years and no children. Are you sure you're okay? You're always just relaxing at home, so maybe you should make a little effort to get pregnant, huh? At this rate, we'll never have kids. Oh, but maybe you're just not able to get pregnant, though.
He said that again on that day. For the past year, Ken had been saying things like that almost daily, criticizing me for our struggle to have children. Every day, he just kept saying sarcastically. The words he hurled at me lacked any trace of love, only serving to make me suffer. It was as if he was saying that I was a complete failure. Ken wasn't the only one who wanted a child. I also wanted one just as much. Despite his claims that I wasn't trying, I had been putting in a lot of effort. For instance, I had tried all sorts of supplements and products known to promote fertility. I even started yoga, which was said to support conception. I was making my own efforts. Yet, even on that day, Ken blamed me like that. Honestly, it was incredibly painful every day. Still, I believed that if we had a child, that situation would surely improve, so I endured the pain and replied with a forced smile.
You're right.
Oh, come on. What's with that smile?
Ken sighed again.
If you were as cute as my little sister and could give me a child, you'd be perfect.
We got married 2 years ago. I'm not even sure how I feel about him now, but I remember how much I used to love him and how close we used to be. When we met, Ken was a kind person who seemed to cherish his family, especially his sister, and I thought of him as someone truly caring. However, he just turned to be a husband who would constantly blame me for not having children, with an excessive attachment to his sister.
Hello, Ken. Nice to see you again.
My sister-in-law named Miley dropped by. She would come over to our place almost every week, making herself at home, rummaging through the fridge for food and drinks without a second thought.
Miley, I've been waiting for you. You're as adorable as ever. Make yourself at home.
Ken beamed at her with a smile he no longer directed at me.
Here, your monthly allowance.
He said that, handing her $200. Although Miley was 25, he still gave her an allowance every month. Personally, I couldn't believe an adult would receive an allowance, but it was normal for the two of them. I once questioned Ken about that. He just replied,
Jamie, you're so cold.
Thanks. I really love you, Ken.
Knowing that she was the one being doted on more than me, Miley used to say things she knew would please him, asking for things and getting her allowance. Meanwhile, Ken told me not to waste money and to stick to a budget. Those feelings of frustration constantly festered inside me.
Oh, Jamie, are you glaring at me? So scary.
Huh? I'm not glaring at you.
As I denied that in a hurry, Miley smirked, pretending to hide behind Ken's back.
Come on, are you jealous of Miley because she's cute? That's why we don't have kids.
Exactly. At this rate, Ken will never love you.
She taunted, laughing.
Meanwhile, my fiancé named Taylor adores me. He's even planning to propose to me by the end of the year.
The two of them continued to throw baseless accusations my way, cornering me. Even hearing Ken's words every day was painful enough, but once a week, he and Miley would hurl comments at me together, like a unified front. That was just an agonizing and unbearable time, without a single ally by my side. Of course, I wanted to talk back. Yet, if I did, they'd just double down and criticize me even more, so I kept quiet. Finally, I felt too exhausted to keep everything inside, so I decided to talk to my in-laws, who were planning to visit soon. I wanted advice on the issue of having a child, hoping they might say something to Ken as well. When my in-laws came over, I carefully explained, wrapping my words in as much tact as possible, how struggling to have children and that Ken's constant comments were becoming a burden for me. Fortunately, Ken was out on an errand and wouldn't be back until the evening. They listened kindly, taking my concerns to heart.
Hi.
When Ken returned, my in-laws told him about my concerns.
There's no need to rush about having a child, right? Jamie seems to be having a hard time with everything. Marriage is a long journey, you know?
My mother-in-law spoke gently, trying to guide him. Ken listened quietly without retorting. After sharing their thoughts, he turned to me and said kindly,
I see. I didn't realize I was putting so much pressure on you, Jamie. I'm sorry. I didn't fully understand you. Let's work together and keep trying.
He looked at me with a warm smile.
You don't need to worry, Mom and Dad. I'll be more considerate of her feelings from now on.
My in-laws seemed relieved to hear that, and I also felt a sense of comfort, thinking he had finally understood. After they left, I turned to Ken.
Thank you for earlier. It meant a lot to me. You know, I read that many couples in their second year of marriage don't have children yet. Some people seek help at fertility clinics. How about we try visiting one together?
Thinking he finally understood, I suggested the idea of going to a clinic. Suddenly, Ken slammed his hand on the table. I was startled and looked at him, only to see him glaring at me.
What were you thinking talking to my parents about kids? Unbelievable. Don't you feel ashamed?
I was at a loss for words.
Go to a clinic? Absolutely not. Normal couples conceive naturally, so there's no need to go to a clinic for this.
At that moment, I understood. Ken hadn't understood me at all. In front of his parents, he'd only acted the part of the supportive husband to avoid conflict. Realizing this, I felt a deep sadness.
Man, I really messed up by marrying you. Why did I even marry someone like this?
Ken muttered before shutting himself away in the bedroom. As I was physically and emotionally exhausted, tears started streaming down my face. Then one day, while I was cleaning the house, I noticed something.
My piano, it's gone.
The piano that had always been in the living room was missing. That was my treasure, which was a cherished gift from my grandmother when I was in elementary school. I had always held that piano dear, bringing that with me as part of my trousseau. Even when Ken and Miley would say hurtful things, looking at that piano would bring me warmth, making me feel as though my grandmother were watching over me. That precious piano was gone. I frantically searched the entire house, but of course, that was nowhere to be found. When I entered Ken's room, I noticed 2 bank statements on the desk. One was Ken's, and the other was the joint savings we had started for our future child. Wondering why those bank statements were there, I opened them, and the sight that greeted me was unbelievable.
All the money is gone.
Ken's account had been emptied of his $7,700, and our savings for our future child had also been drained of $6,900.
The money and the piano, they're both gone.
When Ken got home, I asked him about his bonus, the savings, and the missing piano. He gave me a smug grin and said,
I gave it to Miley as a baby gift. It's my money, so you don't have any right to complain.
Hearing those unbelievable and unacceptable words, I felt a surge of anger.
Your bonus may be your money, but why did you give away my piano and the money we saved for our child? This is unbelievable.
I was deeply saddened. Ken knew how important that piano was to me, yet he gave that away. Furthermore, the money we had saved for our future child, our precious future, was gone, too. His actions left me utterly hopeless.
It's only natural because my adorable sister is having a baby.
He added.
I've stopped expecting anything from you. You can't have kids anyway.
The following day, Miley came to the house. As usual, she teamed up with Ken to criticize me.
You know, marrying you was the biggest mistake of my life. Maybe divorce?
Ken said with a laugh, as though it were a joke. I could tell. He enjoyed watching my reaction, saying things just to hurt me. At that moment, I stopped caring. Why should I have to endure that for people like them? That wasn't happiness at all. Feeling something snap within me, I went to the drawer, took out the divorce papers I had received some time ago, and placed them in front of Ken.
Fine, if that's what you want, let's get divorced. Sign this right now.
Even Ken looked shocked by my reaction.
What are you talking about? You're not serious, huh? There's no way I'm signing that. It's too much of a hassle.
However, I stood my ground and insisted that he sign the divorce papers.
So annoying. But fine, you probably don't have the guts to actually go through with it, so I'll just sign it. Such a nuisance.
I gathered my belongings, took the signed divorce papers, and went straight to the law office to submit them. At that moment, large tears fell from my eyes. It felt as though a heavy weight had lifted off my shoulders. As I watched the big tears drop into my hands, I realized,
Oh my. I've really been hurt all this time.
Then, I headed straight to my in-laws' house. Seeing my tear-streaked and swollen face, they embraced me and welcomed me into their home. At that time, I didn't hold back and told them everything without softening the truth. I then took out my phone and played the recordings I'd saved. They could hear Ken's voice, accusing and berating me, and Miley joining in to criticize me alongside him. My in-laws, thus fully aware of everything, were speechless in shock. With tears in their eyes, they hugged me tightly.
We're so sorry. Jamie, you must have been in so much pain.
Jamie, we're truly sorry. I mean it. From now on, we'll protect you. You can now just relax.
After that, I also called my parents to tell them about the divorce. Of course, I shared how hard my life had been up until then. My in-laws also apologized for the actions of their son and daughter, and everyone came to stand by my side. Until then, I had been criticized every day, with no one to support me. Finally, with the warmth and acceptance of my in-laws and my own family, I felt a surge of gratitude.
By the way, Jamie, is it true that Miley is pregnant?
Oh yeah, I was shocked to hear that too. She never told us about it.
My in-laws replied, utterly surprised because they hadn't been informed of her pregnancy. Curious, we decided to call her fiancé, Taylor, to confirm the details. After talking to him, my suspicion about a certain matter only grew stronger. Later, I noticed that I'd received multiple missed calls from Miley. I had a pretty good idea why she was calling so persistently. When her call came through again, I answered, and Miley's panicked voice flooded through the line.
Finally, you answered. Why weren't you picking up?
Who's calling?
Huh? Are you kidding me?
Miley seemed taken aback by my response.
Never mind that.
She snapped.
Jamie, why did you go and tell everyone about my pregnancy?
She was furious, clearly enraged that I'd told her parents and Taylor.
It's awful that you'd spread it around without my permission. I won't forgive you for this.
Why not?
Huh?
Why shouldn't I tell them?
That's because. You know why. You should understand.
Though she was yelling, I could sense a hint of confusion in her voice.
I don't understand. My husband's sister is expecting a child. I wanted to share the joy with the family, so I told your parents and Taylor, the person you hold dear. I was honestly surprised that no one had been informed of that yet. Why hadn't you told them?
I pressed on, addressing her anger with more questions.
You would have announced a pregnancy to the family right away, huh? And yet, why didn't you tell them?
Just drop it, okay? People have their reasons.
I see, because the lie would come out?
Huh?
In truth, I had long harbored doubts about whether Miley was actually pregnant. My suspicions arose from her behavior. Despite claiming to be pregnant, she drank a lot of alcohol, ate raw foods, and even smoked. Those were actions unthinkable for someone carrying a child. My doubts gained validity when my mother-in-law and I called her fiancé, Taylor. Taylor told us that Miley was burdened with significant debt, and on top of that, he firmly stated that she couldn't be pregnant. That led me to suspect that she had lied about the pregnancy to receive money from Ken to pay off her debts. When I confronted Miley with my suspicions, she stammered,
That's nonsense. I really am pregnant.
Clearly shaken, she continued to insist that.
Then show me the proof of your pregnancy. Or should we visit the obstetrician together? If it's not a lie, you should be able to do that, right?
Finally, Miley admitted to everything, her voice trembling as she confessed the lie. A few days later, along with my in-laws and Taylor, I arranged to meet with Ken and Miley. The atmosphere was tense, and Miley appeared visibly anxious, while Ken kept his head down. When we revealed Miley's deceit to Ken, he turned pale, muttering in disbelief.
No way. This can't be true. Please, tell me it's a lie.
He seemed devastated. That made sense, since he had been deceived by the sister he adored. Sitting beside him, Miley stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's gaze.
Miley, I won't marry you. I've heard everything about what you did to Jamie. I can't believe it. This is the end for us.
Taylor, I'm so sorry.
She sobbed, unable to lift her head.
Ken, I will be pursuing alimony from you.
What did you say?
From now on, please communicate through my attorney.
Jamie, I'm so sorry. Give me another chance. I love you. Please.
Ken pleaded, tears streaming down his face as he collapsed in front of me.
I have no intention of being with you again. What you have done to me was cruel beyond words. Do you think you could ever understand the pain and suffering you put me through? I can't be with you anymore.
As I said that, he broke down even further.
Jamie, Taylor, we are deeply sorry. We would like to apologize for the harm our children have caused to so many people. It is truly unforgivable. Ken, Miley, listen carefully. Neither of you will return to this home. We will never support you financially, including the alimony. You both will manage it yourselves. We will not see either of you again.
With quiet but intense anger, he spoke to them. Following the breakup, Miley began working multiple part-time jobs. Since she had always relied on Taylor's money and the allowance from Ken, she had never really worked diligently. As for Ken, he couldn't focus at work and he eventually got fired. He had no savings after giving so much money to his sister, and what's more, he had no job. With $25,000 in alimony, his life had turned into a constant struggle. Ken now lives in a rundown apartment, juggling multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. A lot has happened, but shortly after our divorce, I met a wonderful man and remarried. To my joy, I was blessed with a child soon afterward. The three of us live happily together every single day. One weekend, my new husband and I were on our way to an amusement park with our child.
Jamie?
To my surprise, I unexpectedly ran into Ken in the middle of town. At first, I didn't recognize him as he looked utterly worn out and disheveled.
With a child, you look happy.
Ken said, visibly struggling to hide his shock. He didn't know I'd remarried and had a child with my new husband.
That's right. I'm very happy. I have a wonderful husband and an adorable child.
Though I was slightly nervous to see Ken after so long, my daughter clasped my hand tightly with her small fingers, and my husband stood behind me, supporting me. With a warm feeling of security and happiness, I smiled at Ken and said,
Goodbye.
I'm glad I got to see your beautiful smile. I'm sorry at that time. Now, goodbye.
Ken had stopped complimenting my smile a long time ago. Back then, I was struggling too much to show him a genuine smile. Today, he offered a compliment as though he could detect my current joy. That alone brought me a measure of gladness. My husband and daughter are looking at me with gentle smiles. Now, I can say it from the bottom of my heart.
I am truly happy.